Good evening from the Philippines. The first part will be discussed by my co-researcher, Mr. Alan Pablo.
Okay. Thank you for having us. So again, our title is the analysis of students' written discourse and the cultural implications of the Netflix Squid Game, a three-dimensional discourse study. Next slide, please. Okay, for the introduction, so let me just first say that the way people perceive visual narratives has changed over time. Now, these narratives may also includes literature, and that we know that has been changing over the course of several years and then of course decades. Next slide, please. Now, these literatures may also take on the forms of TV series, and one of the most foremost distributor of this TV series is Netflix. And then, of course, it has continuously evolved into its global status. Though scholars dispute the claim, it is undeniable that this streaming service is a phenomenon present in multiple and diverse countries, amounting to more than 150 million users, and of course worldwide, including of course the Philippines. Now, a little bit of background information regarding the Squid Game. It is a TV series made by South Korean. It is a brutal 9-part survival drama. It was released here in the Philippines in September 2021, and of course it has taken top spots in more than 80 countries. And including in the content of this particular TV series and or literature, the Korean cultural content, which of course Netflix distributes globally, as according to SNUAC 2021. Next slide, please. Now, this show has played significant role as a source not only of entertainment, but also information in shaping public awareness and extending knowledge about social issues. It also shows that the complex relationship between literature and, of course, culture is quite a significant one. Okay, next slide. Okay, so according to Kubrick in 2020, these kinds of literature, films, TV series, and their narratives present certain arguments in terms of humanistic and cultural, of course, impacts. Now, specifically, these impacts may take on gender, ethnic stereotypes, and of course, changing attitudes between and towards certain groups of people. Next slide, please. Now, the issue and the need for additional insights and how the show can be critically and culturally analyzed is an important consideration in the other popular and emerging literature. Okay, so given the above mentioned relevance, this study aims to analyze the discourse written by the students about the cultural implications of Netflix Squid Game using a three-dimensional discourse study, or more specifically, Fairclough's critical discourse analysis. Now, given the context, the study aims to answer these particular questions. How may the discourse written by the students be analyzed in terms of textual meaning, discourse practice, and social cultural practice? Aside from that, what pedagogical implications may be drawn from the result of the study? As for our methods, this is our research design. So the study is a qualitative research employing the content analysis design, which is the combination of the sociological and empirical approach along with critical discourse analysis as the critical approach. And as mentioned before, it will be Fairclough's critical discourse analysis. Now, we have our own informants. So the informants of the studies were the 6 students who are enrolled in a course, Literature for Contemporary, Popular, and Emergent Literature during the school year 2021 and until 2022. And for our data processing methods, let me first present you a framework. So this is our framework based on Fairclough's critical discourse analysis. As you can see here in our framework, in the innermost box, we have the word text, and this is actually the description part or the text analysis. Further away from that, we have the text production and consumption, along with discourse practice, which will be interpreted. We call this as the processing analysis. And then discourse analysis, going further, we have the sociological practice, which will be explained, of course, using the social analysis. Now, the text analysis, processing analysis, and social analysis themselves are all part of Fairclough's critical discourse analysis. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, for the results and discussion, it will be discussed by my co-researcher, Mr. J. Mark.
Okay, for the results and discussion, I hope I can be heard. For the result and discussion, let's start with the textual analysis. Now, the excerpts pertaining to Netflix or Squid Game were extracted based from the students' 6 written discourse. These excerpts were analyzed through textual metafunctions. And when we talk of textual metafunction, it helps us to organize discourse and preserve continuity and flow of our text. It is about the internal organization and communicative nature of a text. So many devices are employed to achieve this function. And they are mainly reference, ellipses, substitution, conjunction, and lexical cohesion. These linguistic clues are the most obvious ones the readers cannot afford to miss in their text. So the following cohesive devices can be found on the student's essay. The first one is the reference. Okay, the analysis shows that the students use both exaphoric and cataphoric references. The exaphoric reference requires the reader to infer the interpreted referent by looking beyond the text in the immediate environment shared by the reader and writer, while the cataphoric reference lies within the text itself. So we can see and notice the reference in the text given or written by the students or by the informants. The next one is substitution. So excerpt 7 contains a substitution. It occurs when an item is replaced by another item in the text to avoid repetition. So we can also see or find substitution in the 6 written discourse text. Then we have conjunction. So excerpts 4, 6, and 3 contain conjunctions. So conjunction words are linking devices between the sentences or the clauses in the text. So here are the conjunctions that can be found from the written discourse. We can also find some lexical cohesion, such as reiteration and collocation. So excerpt 3, 8, and 2 contain reiteration. So according to Halliday and Hassan, they defined reiteration as 2 items that share the same referent and could either be repeated or have similar meanings in the text. On the other hand, the excerpt 9 contains collocation, as the word well-known shows a combination of vocabulary items that co-occur together. On the other hand, the connection of words and clauses as part of textual analysis, no, and as can be shown here in this figure shows the relational process of the terms as these are concerned with the relationship setup between 2 things or concepts. Here. So we categorize the words into 2, identifying and attributive, and the following words is very much related with Netflix and Squid Games. In terms of the discourse practice, in conducting the discourse practice analysis, each significant clause in the 6 TV series review of Netflix was examined based on the following: mood, speech, function, and modality. And based from the analysis of the discourse practice, there is an enduring commonality among the clauses from the literary analysis in that the students as writers are becoming more socially and politically responsible, endeavoring for a more complex cognitive process while adhering to a more modern sense of literary aesthetic and trends. Then for the social cultural practice, the following excerpts can be taken from the text, and it shows the following sociocultural practice. First, the written text suggests that it is a social class. Squid Game as a reflection of social class by examining the following excerpts, 1, 2, and 3. According also to the students, Squid Game represents cultural representation and signifying practices based from the excerpts taken from the written discourse. And lastly, from the excerpts 1, 2, and 3, as we have here, we can say that the following excerpts show that Korean drama is now a popular literature. Now, for the pedagogical implication, literature itself is cultural. This is not to say that the form of structure is not important. Actually, it is. In many cases, it is impossible to separate culture and structure when it comes to literary analysis. In light of the findings, it is suggested that the pedagogical activities be incorporated in the literature syllabi through the consideration of the 4 core curriculum genres in the reading and writing methodology suggested by Rose 2020, such as preparing for reading and viewing, detailed reading, viewing, joint rewriting, and joint construction. And for the conclusions, the textual meta-functions of the students' written discourse on the cultural implication of Squid Games show that they did not use any ellipses as cohesion, although the other cohesive devices are present in the excerpts. Another is that the discourse practice analysis of the students' written discourse on the cultural implication of the Squid Game reveals that there is an enduring commonality among the clauses from the literary analysis, in that the students, as writers, are becoming more socially, politically responsible, endeavoring for a more complex cognitive process while adhering to a more modern sense of literary aesthetic and trends. Another is that sociocultural analysis of the students' written discourse found lingual units that represent the social theme of Squid Game, such as social class, cultural representation, and signifying practices, and of course, Korean drama as popular literature. These interdisciplinary cultural semiotics, if developed more empirically, factually, and conceptually, can be a source of awareness on popular literature such as Squid Game. For this reason, the critical linguistic study is worthy of space in the context of cultural issues. And it is suggested that pedagogical strategies, as suggested by Rose 2020, be incorporated in the literature syllabus. There are clear associations between the pedagogical strategies and critical discourse elements. And based from the conclusions, the following recommendations are hereby offered. The application and use of systemic functional linguistics or approach in literature classes should be emphasized, since it is the function of language that is most important to students using the language. Students should be given more opportunities to use and practice discourse analysis in real life and authentic situations, and that the students be aware of the existing issues, theories, concepts, and practices in cultural analysis of discourse. Another is that pedagogical strategies such as preparing for reading, viewing, detailed reading, viewing, joint rewriting, and joint construction should be integrated into the literature syllabus. And since this study primarily analyzes the students' insights about popular literature, future studies are recommended to explore more sociocultural concepts of popular literature. And it could be quite useful for a language practitioners of the university to collect corpora, a collection of linguistic data using students' written or spoken discourse to explore how students use language in the academic setting. And for our references, thank you so much.
Thank you.